Okay, let's see. If you can hear me, please comment in the chat. This is my first stream where I have people watching at the same time, so let's see if you can hear me. Oh, great. Awesome. All right. So at the same time, I'm going to I'm gonna run this presentation for about 45 minutes, maybe an hour maximum. So I'm going to start by giving a quick overview. Let me check. Okay, I posted a link in the chat for the live slides. If you want to see this presentation on your computer and follow along, you can go to that link that I posted. So I'm gonna talk about web development, and this is gonna be pretty basic in the beginning. It'll be 4 different sections of the presentation. It's about what is web development, how people make websites, how people make money with websites or web development, and where to start, like to practice or to learn more about it. I'll also run more of these sessions soon, and I'll start to dig deeper into how to actually use this knowledge. So let's go over what is web development. Web development is developing websites, web application, software that lives on the web, and tools or programs that connect other web browsers or things that live on the internet. And so it's almost anything that you can open in the web browser, it's what a web developer would make. So there's billions and billions of different websites and web applications out there, and all of them were created by somebody in some way. And so there's the main things that any website consists of is front end and a back end. Front end, it means what the user can see and can interact with. Back end is whatever you cannot see in the browser, but it's it could be some data that lives in the database. It could be the server side of the web development. So because all websites, they have to come from somewhere, so they're stored on servers. And it could be a web developer's job to develop that server software to send the website to the browser. And if you're working on a front end part of the website, you will be working on something that shows that content in the web browser. And it would also include things like user interaction, where the user would click on something and something happens. So that would be the front end of the website. Another thing to be aware of is, as a part of the backend, it's content is stored somewhere. Sometimes it's stored as files, but sometimes it's also stored as just information in the database. A database, it's kind of like Excel, like if I would put it in simple terms, just like a giant spreadsheet. So for all kinds of information, you could create these databases or parts of the database to store that content. The other thing to know about is JavaScript. JavaScript is part of the front end, but it could also run in the back end of the website or a web application. JavaScript is that piece that makes content interactive. So when you open up a web browser and you go to a website and you can hover over something or click on something and something else happens, when you do that, that would be most likely driven by JavaScript. JavaScript you can make almost anything with JavaScript. These days, even some websites would have JavaScript operate everything else on the website or in the web application. So it's really powerful language, programming language that all web developers know about or use to make websites. So it's going to be really important to learn about that a little bit more. HTML is that part of the website that shows you that basically encapsulates or contains the content of the website that shows up in the web browser. So if you have a web page, I'll show you a simple way to see the HTML. For example, you go to google.com and if you right click here on any part of the website and you click inspect, that's going to show you HTML of that part of the website. So you could see that in a web browser, like, okay, I just clicked on an image and that's the HTML code for that image. You could see a bunch of other stuff here. So that's all HTML for google.com. Right, and you could do this on any other website. You could just right click. If you're in a Chrome web browser, you could just right click and click on inspect element, and that will show you HTML. This is a truly powerful tool. It's called the Web Developer Tools console, and it shows you all kinds of things here. I'll go over this in the next lesson somewhere, but so far you just need to know about it, that it exists and that it shows you HTML and CSS and JavaScript. Okay, let's see. Let me see if my YouTube is working fine. Okay. Okay, so next I'll talk about how people make websites. What do you use to make websites? There are a few different ways, right? So one way is to use code. It's the code that you write or using frameworks or code that other people make. And there's hundreds and hundreds and or thousands of different frameworks that people can use. There's open source frameworks and there's closed source frameworks. So some are free, to use, and some you'd have to pay money for to use. But there's so much free content and free frameworks that it's becoming a big trend for all kinds of businesses to switch to open source frameworks to make websites or web applications. You could also use code editors or other tools that allow you to use code, but where you don't have to write as much code. In a long time ago, there was a tool called Adobe Dreamweaver. That was a tool like that where you could design your website in this tool, and you could still customize it or add some interactive pieces to it using all like JavaScript or CSS. But you still need to know about code a little bit. And there are other tools that involve no custom code. There are templates that you can buy, and you just need to customize some small parts of it, but you don't really need to know a lot of code or use a lot of custom code. There are tools or websites like, I'll show you in a second, websites like card.co here. You'll see it in this window right here. This is like a free tool to make a single page website for lots of different things, and they have different templates that you can use, and you just customize that portion of the template, and you publish the website. And so it's a quick thing that you can use to make a simple website. But of course, if you want more stuff that go with it, you would need to pay money for it, or you would need to make your own stuff with code, like your own website with code. There's also a tool called Webflow, and that's a big company now that allows you to make your website, to design it, and to publish it for free or for reasonable amount of money. You can make shops, you can make blogs and powerful websites and web applications with it. And it doesn't involve a lot of code, but it would help if you knew HTML and CSS and JavaScript to use it, so you could customize it in the way that you want. Right. So there are tools like that where it's gonna get you 90% where you want to go most of the cases, but there's that 10% or so that you would need to code or know about and navigate code to make it useful for your use case. Next, so I just went over those two things. Okay, just a second. Okay, so now I'll talk about tools that allow you to use code, or I guess first I will cover what are websites made of, and then I'll dive a little bit deeper into tools that allow you to use code. So websites are made of three different things. HTML is the presentation language for the website. CSS is how the website is going to look like, and all the different kind of graphical parts of the website. JavaScript would be the part that makes website interactive, that allows you to react to something that you do on the website, or it allows you to talk to other websites or web applications, to communicate or to send data or to receive data. Okay, so now I'll give you a little bit of like a quick demo what people do with HTML, JavaScript, and CSS, right? So so as an example, to learn more about it, HTML, JavaScript, and CSS, you can go to a website called codepen.io. If you've never seen it, it's really fun, you know, and there are thousands of different code pens that people make to show you HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Like it's a lot of these are experiments, you know, that people make to then turn into a website at some point, or to put this small piece into a bigger website that they're making. So, for example, in this case, it's like HTML, CSS, and JavaScript for collapsible content sections. Right, so you could see HTML on this side, CSS on this side, and JavaScript on this side, on the right side. And so this is like a super basic demo of, okay, hey, I can see HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, and here's the result. And so if you go to codepen.io, you can just click on all of these code pens, and you know there are probably millions of them by now that do some fun things. And so that's an easy way to get some inspiration, or to see how something is made that ends up on the web somewhere. Yeah, so there are like really cool interactive things, or new designs that have never been done. Right, so there's like experiments and small web applications. So that's one way where you can get inspiration, or to see how something is made. Okay, so next, you can also, I think next it would be important to know, what does web development bring you? Like, what can you do with it if you're a web developer? So let's see, is this website gonna work? Yeah, Glassdoor. Okay. So Glassdoor is a website where you can find jobs. There are millions of jobs, hundreds of thousands of companies that post jobs here. Let's see, I would probably need to sign in to show you what jobs are available. There's also Indeed.com. Okay, so on these job websites, you can check, okay, like, what does a web developer make? So you can see web developer on Glassdoor. You know, and there are lots of different fields that are closely related to web development. So as soon as you type this, you could actually see what the job titles are out there. You know, front-end web developer. Some people only do front-end web development. They don't know much about the server side of things, so that they cannot be considered as like back-end web developer. Senior web developer is usually somebody that knows well front-end and back-end, and they know, you know, they just have lots of wisdom about it. Full stack web developer, that's another job title that also means somebody that's proficient with back-end and front-end, but then they might not be like a senior web developer, so they might not have as much experience. You know, you could be a senior full stack web developer, or you know, senior back-end developer, or senior front-end developer. If you're just starting out, you know, you would be looking for something like junior web developer. Let's see, and these jobs, a lot of them are also remote. So there's this remote OK website that where you can search for remote jobs in web development. So I gave a little demo of this website last time I did a live stream. You can find it on my YouTube, where I was showing how to search here and or other remote places to remote websites to search for jobs. So let's see, web development that is remote. And when you start looking at jobs like that, you quickly notice some terms, right? Like front-end JavaScript developer, React, Vue, Angular 2. So React and Vue and Angular, those are JavaScript frameworks that are very popular. And so that you could also look at those, you could Google those and see what you're gonna find, what does that mean? So I would encourage you to look through some jobs and to just understand what are the things that people mean by that, and what is this job, what does that mean? Like, what do you need to know, right? So looking at the job descriptions is actually a helpful thing for you to know what to learn. So here's Glassdoor. Let's see. There's hundreds of thousands of jobs for web development because lots of companies are moving to the digital kind of world. They're trying to become, the next Amazon or the next Google in some ways, or like they have to compete with those big companies. So they have to develop their online presence. Even like a small coffee shop needs to know how to run a website and how to have a website, right? So there's jobs for web development all over the place. A lot of them are remote. A bunch of them are on site, or whatever that means now. Like it might be remote for a little bit, and then it might be on site at some point. The salaries that you could see. Let's see. Let's look for like a bigger city. Even though I live in Federal Way, I would look for a job as like a web developer somewhere else in a bigger city, and you could see, the salary range is like 33,000 to 86,000. I actually know somebody who was a junior developer, but they were making 70,000 a year, right? So it's not bad. Like if somebody spends a year or two learning, they can be making pretty good amount of money almost right away. It depends how much they know, and so to be a web developer, it's not necessary to have a degree. It's necessary to know the concepts and to be able to understand the problems and to search for problems, for the solutions to those problems. So it's, I would say, some people like me, I couldn't learn by myself as well, so I had to go to university to learn a lot of these concepts. Other people, they might be just fine learning on their own, without additional discipline or the push from the outside. So that's going to be up to you. But after you're a junior web developer, if you work a few years in this industry, you become a senior web developer, or you could become a manager of some sort. If you're a senior web developer, you could make around like 140,000 or more. At some companies, it's even a lot more than that. So the range in here, like in Washington State, Silicon Valley would be completely different. Like there would be a ton of more higher pay there. Yes, and when you click on those jobs on Glassdoor, it's also good to know what are the requirements for that job, right? So like you would know what do you need to know to be a senior web developer or senior software engineer. You would also see that software developer is often kind of overlapping with web developer, and that is because web development is essentially writing software that only works on the web. So I myself, I was at some point I had a title of software engineer, and you know, in some companies it's software engineer, that's the job title, but in other companies it's the web developer. But it's essentially the same thing in this context. Yeah, there's a comment in the chat that in California the taxes and the living cost is way higher. Yep. So of course, if you're making a lot more money, you know, you might have higher tax and living cost is higher. But there are hundreds of companies in Silicon Valley that are hiring remotely and do their job remotely. So like Stripe would be a company that has remote jobs. So it's a company that's based, I think, in San Francisco. You know, so their pay is pretty high, but you could be like on some farm in Alaska or something, you know, and you could be still making the the money that they're paying to everybody else. So there's lots of companies like that where you could work for a company in Silicon Valley and make a ton of money, but live anywhere in the world, essentially. So let's see. I would like for you to ask some specific questions in the chat, and I would answer those questions if you have them. Otherwise, I'll pull up a few resources in like 2 or 3 minutes where you can learn more. And like, I think you would have a little bit of homework between now and next time that I'm going to run the session. So ask your questions in the chat if you have some. Okay, so let's see. So the question in the chat is, would you recommend going to college or like university to get an engineering degree, like a software engineering degree, or would you recommend code camps or self-learning? that's a hard question for me to. So it depends on how disciplined you are in learning. You know, like I had a coworker who was a junior web developer, and he was completely self-taught. So he 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 was like 19 or 20, but he learned everything himself, and he was doing a very good job, right? So when he was interviewing for that job, he was honest. You know, he said like, "Hey, I learned everything on my own. You know, so I might not have that breadth of knowledge, but he was eager to learn, and he was willing to, you know, to to like to try it out." And the company gave him a job, and you know, he still works there probably like a year and a half later, and he was a very fast learner, and he was very disciplined to learn on his own. Not everybody is like that. I know me, I would not know kind of where to find answers or how to ask the right questions. And so for me, learning in like a class setting was the best. If if you're disciplined enough, you could learn everything that you need to know for the job by yourself. Like a lot of big companies now, they're not asking you to have a software engineering degree. You know, they're asking you to be able to prove that you can do the work. You know, so there are some sort of way to test that. There are some coding quizzes or like assessments, or there are ways to ask for like to build something like a small website in a short amount of time, and to see if the person can do it or what problems are they having. You know, so, and if you can pass that test, you're going to be hired essentially. So let's see, does this matter more for job requirements, or is the education that comes with a degree that much more helpful? It depends what kind of jobs. So because web development is such a wide topic, like there's, you know, you could make a small website for you know, local bakery. That does not require you to have a computer science degree. You could still make websites for, you know, lots and lots of different small businesses, and have completely no awareness of like sorting algorithms or you know, machine learning or something like that. So it depends how you want to make money with this. You could make small websites and still be fine 10 years from now, right? But you could also be making, you know, bigger websites, or participating in, you know, making giant startups, or contributing to existing big businesses. So in that case, you would probably need to have more breadth, and one way is to go to college or university to get that that wide area of knowledge. So personally, I would ask you about your discipline. You know, like if you're disciplined enough, you could learn all of this on your own. And I'll show you some resources right now where you could learn a lot of this. And you could even start learning, you know, and then when you know more about this, you would know better what to look for. If you are going for a specific degree, you would know how to choose, and you would know kind of you'd know the details and the keywords that you need to look for. So in my opinion, it's important to start learning by yourself, and then understand the direction that you want to go, and you know, you would have better knowledge about how to choose that degree or a program that you want to go into. Even if it's a boot camp, like a coding boot camp, right? You would know, you would be a little bit ahead of the curve if you learn some of this, or you might not even need the bootcamp if you are so disciplined to learn. So for example, here's a website on Khan Academy. They have computer programming, HTML and CSS lesson, right? So they have, I think they have a set of videos and a set of kind of small parts of like a course where you can understand what HTML means, what are different tags in HTML. Then there's CSS, right? So what tools people use to make websites, how to host a website, and so forth. So this is actually like a very good free course, right? Like you don't need to pay any money to learn this. I was able to just go here. I didn't even need to register and just click on any of these and it's right there. That's kind of like what the web was originally designed for. You just click on the links and you go somewhere, you know, you don't have to pay money. So this website is really good for that. And they have, they actually have like interactive stuff here. You could type something and it will change what you see on the other side, right? So like if you just wanted to change the color, I think it would just change it for you. Yeah, there you go. So it's, you know, that's one way to get information that's helpful, and that's kind of like going through a coding bootcamp. So I'll paste some of these links in the chat. There's another free, I think it's still free, and you'd have to double check it. Originally it started with just this, like HTML and CSS. It's a website called Code Academy. They do have some paid courses, but I think a lot of these are still free. So you should be able to look through those. And the more, you know, like I would say, like there's never a point at which, like as a web developer, you know everything about web development. There's never a point like that. Like even after 5 or 6 years doing web development, you would still be like sometimes you would be looking up the most basic things. So being a web developer, it does involve a lot of searching and like understanding how to search and understanding what to look for, and solving those problems as you go. So I still look up, like even though I've been developing stuff, you know, big websites. I worked on NBCnews.com, you know, and I worked on hundreds of other websites, and I still look up most basic things time to time. And there's no person in the world that would just know everything. Like they could just code everything without looking up, you know, some of these things, or they would know the exact way how something is coded. So this is a process. Being a web developer it's a process that you're always evolving in that. Like you always get better at solving those problems, but you're never good to the point that you just know everything off the top of your head. Here's another resource. Developer.mozilla.org is a really good resource. Mozilla is a company that makes browsers like Firefox, and they also do a lot of things for virtual reality and other open source or free technologies. So it's this is like a very credible resource. There are lots of other websites about web development, but this one it's from the people that make web browsers. So it's, you know, it's legit. And they have lots and lots of easy things to learn, but also like very in-depth. Like if you're a web developer like me, that you've been doing this for many years, and you needed to look something up, this is where I would go. to search for those specific browser related JavaScript or like CSS questions. So if you don't have any more questions, this is gonna be it for now. If you have some questions, I'll give you a minute to answer. Other than that, like, your homework is gonna be to take a look at these introductions, intro to HTML and CSS on Khan Academy. Go through that, through some of these sections, and so that next time when we are in this course, you would have specific questions, and you would know what I'm going to be talking about, because I'm going to be talking more about HTML and CSS, and then probably a lesson after that is going to be about JavaScript. I'll get started about JavaScript, but there's it's all just like a rabbit hole. Like, as we start going deeper, there's going to be a lot more information that you need to know about. So the homework is to just kind of go through khanacademy.org, through here HTML and CSS introduction, and also try out making a website on a NoCode tool like card.co or Webflow. And it would be great if you could send me what you make. Like, if you make a little web page, you can come up with an idea about, hey, I want to make a web page for like my class, or for about how to make something, or a web page for your family member or something like that. And I would love to see what you're doing, and you could also ask me questions as you go. I think I have everybody's email address that signed up for this course, but if you haven't submitted that information, feel free to contact me so that I can add you to my list that I'm running. So that's gonna be it for now. And I will see you next time. It's probably gonna be in a week. I'm gonna try to do this on Sunday at 5. If the time is not good for you, feel free to let me know. Maybe I'll be able to reschedule it to another day. That's it.